Hi guys, Erika Bentley with Berkshire Hathaway here, your real estate resource. And I'm here with my friends, Lindsay and Katie with Stewart Title, so we can talk about some fun, exciting title and escrow. Let's talk about some what ifs, some scenarios, okay? So I have a seller who, when he purchased his home, let's just call him John. When John purchased his home, he was single. Now he's married. And he's going to sell the property, and they're having a baby, and they're now upsizing. So when John sells this property, what happens with his wife? She's not on title. Does she still need to sign something? What happens with her?
So for Nevada, it's a community property state. So in that instance, she becomes a partial owner of the property, even though she's not on title. She has a vested interest in the sale of this property. What we have her do is sign on what we call a spousal deed, and it just says that she's aware that there's a sale taking place, and she's relinquishing her interest to her husband so that he can sell the property without any sort of liens.
Okay. So what if two people hold title to a property and one passes away? Then how do you handle that?
Unfortunately, it happens a lot, and when we see that somebody has passed away, what we'll do is ask you for an original death certificate. When we go to sign off on all of the documents, we're going to have the surviving person sign an affidavit just stating that the person that's the decedent on the death certificate is also the person that was on the title with them.
Okay.
And then that will allow them to sign off on everything by themselves, and we'll record the deed.
Okay. So would it have to be it has to be the original?
It does have to be the original because we want to make sure that it's a real death certificate.
Okay. And so would you need some kind of marriage certificate on our previous scenario where it was a single man, then he got married and she's relinquishing? Do you need a marriage certificate in that situation?
That's a great question actually, Erika, and in some cases, yes, we do. The reason for that is, let's say that John got married and she didn't take his last name, but we want to prove that she is a spouse and that she is signing off on her interest. Then we may ask for that original marriage certificate. Okay. But if they bear the same name, then it's more likely that they were definitely married, and it'll be fine without a marriage certificate.
Okay, so not every case requires it, but sometimes.
Sometimes.
Okay. That was a good one. What about different ways of taking title on a property? So scenario, I have a buyer who's who lives with their partner, but they are not married, and just one of them is actually going on the mortgage. Can the other person's name go on the title of the house?
Absolutely, that would be fine. Sometimes the lender would have to approve that scenario, and in other cases it's best if they buy an extended policy. So typically the seller would pay for an owner's policy, but the buyer may opt to have additional coverage with their owner's policy. It's not very expensive and it does cover an awful lot, so it's worth asking about. It would cover in some cases adding an additional person or even changing from their person's name into another entity like a trust or a company.
Okay.
And I do think one thing is important to mention here: if you are adding an additional person who is not a spouse, who is not a family member, and it depends on whether it's mother to daughter, son, father, that type of thing, but typically not siblings. Is there exemption for siblings?
There is a sibling exemption when you're transferring title from one sibling to the other. There's also a tax exemption for the real property transfer tax when it's parent to child. But we would require to have original documentation, such as a birth certificate, just stating that that is your parent or proving that you have the same biological parent.
Thank you so much for joining us for another segment of Real Estate Resources. We have Erika Bentley with Berkshire Hathaway Group and Katie and Lindsay from Stewart Title. It was a pleasure. If you have any further questions or anything that we can address or discuss for you, please let us know. You can send us an email, send us a text, or comment in the messages, and we're happy to answer whatever questions we can for you.